Good evening, Inspill Glimmers, and welcome to this special episode that really wasn't planned, but let's just say the Melbourne DLC was eventful.
Yeah, as all these events seem to be nowadays.
So, this is not going to be our longest episode, but we want to talk about something that happened over there. There was an incident during the quarterfinals, if I'm not mistaken, Drew?
You're right.
Yeah. So on stream where Jesse Lentini playing Emerald Amethyst was playing against Clément Fussad, who was on a Ruby Sapphire. And Drew, I think you've watched this thing a little bit more closely than I have. Why don't you tell us what happened on stream, what we saw?
Yeah, so I won't do a full recreation of the board. All I want to say is Fussad had a Maui half shark that was dry, that could challenge. It's Lentini's turn. He has a magic broom, the one-drop magic broom on board, and he plays a Merlin goat.
Yep.
Goes to write down one lore, and then goes to sack.
The first part, the part you missed though, he starts by exerting his broom to quest.
Right. Sorry, he quests with the broom,
Yeah.
and then plays the Merlin. Goes to write the one lore on his pad, then comes back, takes the broom to sack it, and then Fussad just calls a judge. Like, when I saw that, I was just like, he didn't do anything wrong, per se.
Yeah.
And then,
Because per the rules, when that goat enters, both triggers go into the bag, and
you resolve them as you
Lentini
wish.
decides in which order he wants to resolve them. You can draw first, then add the lore, or add the lore, then draw first, and then draw afterwards.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And Fussad calls the judge about the sacking of the broom being an illegal move. And to my total bafflement and to the internet's outrage, the judge called in favor of Fussad, saying that the broom was not to be sacked and the card not to be drawn. So now Lentini had a huge liability having an exerted broom on his board that was
for the shark to rush into.
Exactly. So, and this cost a lot of points out of the quarterfinals to Lentini. It's like some people
and keep
call
in
it.
mind, this was the match to get into the Worlds.
It
top
was
4 went to the Worlds, right?
No, it's top 2. So
top 2. Okay, well, okay.
Yeah, it was one step removed from Worlds. So,
okay,
so yeah,
at least.
Yeah, sure. Like spoiler alert, it still enabled Fussad to get the top 2 spot and get to Worlds, which I can't say I'm too happy about.
Me neither.
Because that's the thing, like, allegedly, it's not the first, like, brush with rule infringement that this player had. It's self-alleged. Like, self-alleged. This is not me throwing shade at another player. He admitted to cheating in online webcam tournaments.
Yep.
In the past.
Yep.
Like, this is my hugest red flag here.
And prior to that, in the game, there was a very similar interaction in the same match where Lentini had the exerted broom, brought a rose in, and then added his lore, sacked the broom, and then it was fine. Like, he had no shark on his side, so at that point, he let it slide.
Yeah.
When the shark was there, wait a minute, now that's illegal.
Yeah, so you see, like, I'm gonna go into my, like, professor mode here. What this is called, like, some people will call it cheating, some other will call it soft cheat, micro cheat, or whatnot. The correct term that I learned from Magic is angle shooting. It is angle shooting. And why we use this term is because it's, I want to say, dubious if it's actual cheating or it's just like on the fringe of. But you don't want to be in that spot of like having a moral call to be made of like, did you cheat? Did you not cheat? What is okay? Like, surely, like there was an advantage to be gained, and he decided to do so for that reason. So that's the thing. Like, it's a thing you see a lot, like from, I want to say, moderately to more experienced players, and I've seen it like I'm really sad to say I've seen it a lot in Lorcana, like being a newer game, players coming from other backgrounds from like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and whatnot, they will try their hand at, I want to say, preying on less experienced players, and I don't want to like generalize, but like females,
It's a lot of
kids.
people's new TCG. It's a brand new demographic, and I have to say, I've seen quite a bit of entrenched players, people who you know almost live at card stores, seeing those players, and I don't want to say being unable to admit they could lose to this new demographic, but you see a lot more of this angle shooting directed at them. My girlfriend comes to leagues, come to certain set championships, not that frequently. She's a very casual player, and a lot of the time after her matches with some of these players, she's gonna come back and say like, "Hey, this guide argued this ruling to me, or told me my card isn't like cannot do that, or that this card is supposed to interact that way." And I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not how it works at all. The ruling is way off and he shouldn't know it. The card is very clear. But they'll try their luck thinking that the player's going to be too shy to argue against me, or he's not going to call the
Just for
judge because I
judge,
have
like,
authority. Like, I've been playing card games forever. If I say it confidently enough, it's going to pass. And even if it doesn't, well, you can just say like, oh, well, I didn't know that's how the interaction worked. And like, you don't have any negative outcome for not, like, for having shot your shot.
yeah, it comes off like, I'm sorry to say it this way, like a bit scummy. Like you're just taking advantage of someone that is just there to have fun. I mean, like in the context of like a league, generally a league, or like a
Set
championship,
championships.
depending on like what the stakes are. And like even there, like I don't care if you're playing for top eight or you're just playing in the bottom bracket of your set championship. It should be just be good practice. Like I understand that there's a lot riding on DLCs, top eights, and whatnot. Not to boast, like I've been there, and
You
like,
have.
and that's the thing. Like I have like in goodwill tried to make equitable splits and whatnot with my opponent before game started, so there's no feels bad. People have like denied those offers, and then they left a bit frustrated about it. I'm like, I offered you the thing, so there's no feels bad, you know. Anyway, so but
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's also like, especially for smaller, like, yeah, sure, you can argue that invitation to worlds and everything, there's tens of thousands of dollars worth of cards awaiting you there. It's a big incentive
mm,
to be sharking a little more, to maybe be incentivized to try your hand at cheating, or at least bend the rules to the fullest that they'll be allowed to bend. Uh, it's still not what we should be striving for as a community, and I don't think it is. Like, we've had a public statement from Rochelle, who is a community manager for Ravensburger, on their Discord, mentioning that they're aware of the situation, they're aware of the community sentiment, because there's two big outcries in this. There's the judge call in itself, which brings back to what we've seen at North American Championships and a lot of stuff. There is a need for better judging and better judge training. Like, it is hardly needed.
an official judge program,
Yeah.
please and thank you.
I mean, there's Sunscorched, I think, on Reddit. Like, just fly him into whatever DLC and have them be the head judge. They're doing an amazing job. Just like, I don't care. Like,
There,
if that's
there,
what we need in the meantime, just do that.
like there are a lot of really great judges. I remember the judges from Atlanta. I don't remember his actual name. I know he goes by Googly something. He was on a bunch of the Illuminateers episodes and whatnot. He's a great judge. There are a lot of great elements in like the community. Also, I haven't seen any of them at Continentals, let's say. And I
Yeah.
understand that, and I understand that they wouldn't be in Melbourne. Like the trip was freaking K. Like I checked for tickets, so I know what I'm talking about. And like, you know,
I mean, Ravensburger is still fluent people. You could fly in a head judge that is like well trained and everything. It's part of the expense of running the event. You could decide you're doing that if that's something you genuinely care about.
well, like with this outcry and whatnot, I'm sure that now it's going to be more of a concern now.
Kind of has to be. But yeah, the first part of the outcry is that really bad judge call. But I think the second part is more important. The fact that the judge call happened in the first place. That the player, more than likely knowingly, decided to make like that judge call, even if only to mess up his opponent's thought process and introduce a pause in the game so that they could have time to think of their angle of attack to try this to put like
It gives you
mud
time,
into their opponent's brain.
like it gives you time just to like better assess the board state, and gives a lot of room for the person getting getting being on the other side of the judge call, just like you said, mud on the brain, or just like breaking their thought process. Like they had like lines established, they knew what they were doing, they knew what they were going for.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you a story from a regional championship from Magic. That was like back in November, so like that's a few months ago. Round one of the regional championship. We're in game number 3. So meaning I won a game, they won a game. We're in on like turn 5 or something, and I'm clearly pulling ahead in this game. At that point, my opponent calls a judge. I don't know why, because like I haven't even taken a play. I'm just like reflecting about the shape of my turn for this turn 5, and they call judge. And they say, I'm concerned about those foil lands there because I had 2 of the same land on board that were foil. And I have to admit, they were kind of curvy. And then the judge looked at my deck and said, like, okay, so I can spot about 10 cards that look like they could be marked, they're foil, but there's like no pattern in it. I'm not gonna give you a game loss for that. What I'm gonna do is give you 10 minutes to go to the vendors and go buy the cards in non-foil version, or at least non banded version, to keep on playing.
Yeah.
So like for sure it's gonna create some kind of frustration. Like I had to go spend an extra $90 for a tournament like that. I didn't like in that case it was $90 for me, but like it could have been like way more. It could have been like a
Oh yeah.
playset of like $100 card. That I would have like probably tried to appeal or
Or ask
uncurl
for
those,
proxies or whatever. Or
which they never do. Like in Magic, I'm gonna tell you, they never issue proxies except if it's the last possible thing they can do. Like the card doesn't exist in non-foil, and
okay.
that was the only time they issued proxies, is when the card didn't exist in non-foil. So that's that. And then like I said, I resumed my turn, and then I had like my thought process broken up, and I missequenced something and ended up losing that game.
Yeah.
So he kind of accomplished what he wanted. Like he didn't get me like the game loss he probably wished I would get, but he still got me to lose that game by playing it not
Yeah, just by breaking up the
optimally.
thought process.
So like
And even if the judge said like, "Oh, it's fine, just keep playing," he still interrupted thought process, stopped the momentum. We see it a lot in like football and stuff like that, where okay, the clock's starting to run out, the other team has momentum, you need to recoup, you need
timeout.
to think about timeout, or like throw out of bounds, or get a ruling sent to like challenge a ruling. It might cost you a timeout, but by the time they send it to the video recording, they send it to like you're buying time, you're stopping the momentum, you're getting time to like reshift just by that. And
It's all strategical, but it's not great for these, especially these strategic, like brain fueled games. I
yeah,
understand that also, like in sports, like on a way, in a way, you're heated in the moment. You might be running hot, and now you're cooling down, or maybe you need that little break just to take a breath and like come back like sharper. Like depends. It's debatable, but in card games, it's never gonna be a good thing. Never,
no,
because like your brain is just working, and if you stop the motion of your brain, then like that's where you're losing out. You're missing out.
Which is bringing us to the very weird part of us advising people to do exactly that to a degree. Like, we're not telling people to start angle shooting or frivolously calling judges. But in card games, especially in tournaments, if you're a newer player, if you're someone who is usually shyer, who doesn't want to cause a commotion or whatever, don't be afraid to call a judge. It's not something you should be scared of. It's not drama. If there's anything that needs clarification, call a judge. If your opponent is telling you, hey, you can't do this, or hey, it's supposed to do that, or especially in Lorcana, where both players are responsible for the board state
each other's
of each other.
triggers, board
Yeah.
state effects, whatnot.
Like, don't be afraid to call it out and to call a judge if something was missed. A good example of that, yesterday in Set Championship. My girlfriend's playing a game. She's on, well, Amethyst Emerald. Just like in this case with Lentini. And she's against Ruby Sapphire. It's late game. She's clearly winning. She has a good board. Her opponent doesn't.
Ruby Amethyst.
Ruby Amethyst. Did I say Ruby Sapphire?
Yes.
Ruby Amethyst. My bad. Ruby Amethyst. And she plays an Ursula Deceiver, not really, like, just thinking she's developing her board, forgetting that she has the look at the hand, discard,
which is the automatic, right?
It is automatic. It's not a May trigger. It is chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards
a song.
Chosen song, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact wording, but it is not a May ability. And she's stressed. Her day's going fairly well. She's 1-1 at that point, and for her, it's a good accomplishment. She's not looking for top 8 or anything, but she's just happy that she's winning. Her opponent doesn't disclose his hand, goes to his turn, be prepared.
Blatantly misses the trigger.
Yeah, blatantly misses. Well, that's the thing. It's not even misses the trigger. Goes to his turn, plays a be prepared, and then says, I was surprised when you didn't trigger your Ursula, but it's whatever. And goes on to win the game when she was at 18 and they were at like 5 or something. Like, clearly they preyed upon the fact that, oh, she missed the trigger, even though it's an obligatory trigger, and just ran away with the game, even rubbing it in her face. And she kind of came to me after game 3 when we were having lunch, and she was like, yeah, that felt kind of bad. And I was like, it's not only it felt bad, it wasn't a legal action for him to do.
Yeah, it's
but by that time the game's over.
Yeah. So it's like basically, like, in that case, actual factual cheating.
Yep.
Like denying your opponent triggers under cards that are not optional.
Optional, yeah.
That's just like all kinds of wrong.
I mean, that same player was also seen later in the day just mistakenly adding an extra lore when questing, or forgetting to put their damage trigger, or like...
Yeah, no.
I get it, mistakes happen. Like, me, myself, I'm gonna, like, do something that, like, rush into a snake, it does 3, I'm gonna say 3, put the dice mistakenly on 2, my opponent's like, hey, it's 3 on 2. Yeah, right, 3. Like, mistakes happen, you're in your mind, it's a competitive game. I'm not saying call everyone a cheater. Not what happens. People make mistakes.
Yeah.
But sometimes those mistakes clearly aren't just mistakes or just challenges. Don't be afraid to call a judge to clarify.
And, like, I'll tell you, like, I've just played a set championship today. I think I play very cleanly. Like, in any game I play, you played against me, you know about it, and like,
we've played quite a few games.
It's almost mechanical for me to just, like, when there's a life total or like lore shift or whatnot, like going to 14 to 10, right? And like that's every or just like deal 3, or like play this activating ability or like whatnot. Just naming every step of the way without it being like ridiculously like heavy or whatnot or over verbose, if you get my drift.
No, you're not going to be like, okay, I'm playing this, activating this, activating this, but you're gonna be like, okay, so I'm exerting my broom, play a goat, gain one, sack, draw a card. Like you're going through the motion, but you're calling it out as you go.
Exactly. And like I'm always gonna like on my part, I'm always gonna give the opportunity to someone to like within like reasonable and plausible timing to resolve a trigger, like especially the Diablo draw trigger. Like if
Yeah,
they
someone was giving the example earlier of like players going, okay, it's your opponent hasn't exerted Diablo, and you go like, okay, so draw ink. Oh well, if you want to draw now, it's too late. I've already inked. I've taken a game action. You've missed your trigger. Like,
like I'm if there's a Diablo on the other side, like I'm not necessarily asking for people to do the same for me because I'm gonna remember my triggers and I'm gonna draw my card no matter what. If they're just like draw ink, I'm like I draw a card from this.
yeah,
Like I'm not gonna be shy in stopping them, but they're not gonna try this against me because they know me. They know I'm like my pedigree as a player. So like that's
yeah.
the
But
thing.
if I'm playing against someone who has a Diablo, it's gonna be like, okay, so draw for
Draw
turn,
one,
ink.
two, three, ink. Yeah, like
Like you're
give
not gonna
like
be like, hey, do you want to draw? Because I drew. But at the same time, you call out your draw, you take a pause while you look at your cards, and then you
get
act.
like count a moderate pace 3 second. Like
Yeah.
draw one, two, three, ink. Like you left a
And
window
whatever
there.
game action you're gonna take, like quest or sing a
Yeah,
song or
yeah. They're not like I'm not gonna say like draw. Do you want to draw for your Diablo? No, like I'm not obligated to do that, but I'm still gonna leave them like a reasonable amount of time to remember their trigger if like they were about to forget it or something.
yeah, because that's a May trigger. But at the same time, if it's your opponent's turn and they don't put their location lore, well, you're responsible for telling them as well in Lorcana. So
And it's gonna like this lore location is gonna be added to the lore total one way or another, and like
yep.
again, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, you should definitely angle shoot of like, oh, I'm gonna forget the 3 pumps of my queen's castle and like magic, I got 6 more lore on my lore total. No,
Yeah, I'm
no,
not gonna
don't do
say it,
that.
and then at the end of the game, you're like, "Oh shoot, I forgot my 3 lore there. 620."
Like, don't do that. But that's why both players are responsible for this.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm saying. Like, play clean. Like, the game is so much fun. The community is so like it's a very I want to say kind and pure community compared to other card games that are more like cutthroat and more individualistic and whatnot. Like I hate having this like this argument and seeing like that much flame on the internet regarding Clement, regarding like other players that didn't show up to the Continentals. Like I'm not gonna name them, but they sure weren't
no, but we
there.
we've had like other DLCs where there were accusations thrown around, and those people didn't show up at North American Championships. Were
Yeah,
their invocations revoked? We don't know for sure, but
we we
clearly
we,
something happened because
we actually know there were
oh, we did.
pass downs. There were
Oh,
pass
okay,
downs.
they were passed down. So yeah, so like clearly Ravensburger is taking this seriously enough
But they're
uh
doing it behind closed doors.
behind closed doors.
So like we all we know is like it's this player that finished ninth, 10th, DLC that's showing up for the Continental. Like you understand what happened, but we're
Yeah,
not
there's not
talking
an
about
open
it.
statement. It's not like clearly sending the message of, hey, don't do this. But what I can tell our viewers, if you're the kind of people who angle shoot, who is a rule shark trying to prey on people, the community around you knows. Like the people in our community who do that, everyone knows them. It's talked behind their backs. People don't like them. People don't invite them when they're asking for favors or when they're playing. Like I actually took out uh, the player that Engel shot my girlfriend later in the tournament. And a bunch of other people who were present came back and cheered me on when I took that person out of the tournament because they were like, he deserved it. We're so happy that you managed to get them out of the prize pool. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if
like
that's how you want to be seen by your community. It's not. It's definitely not how I want to be seen by mine.
it feels so much better to like. It's gonna feel like quite cheesy what I'm gonna say. It feels really good being like the hero and whatnot. Like I'm like I'm gonna name when I had my DLC finish. Like it felt great. Everybody was happy, genuinely happy for me, talking to me like, "Oh, what are you playing? What are you doing?" Like and whatnot. Whilst like if you're known to be like angle shooty, not very nice, a rule shark or whatnot, people are just gonna genuinely be happy when you don't win, which is not a great feeling. Like I can assume, like, because that's the thing. Like I want to circle back to that a little bit. Like even in Magic, when I started playing, like I started playing about 10 years ago. I don't feel that people were like preying on the new player that much. Like, okay, I had to learn some lessons the hard way. Like sometimes like playing against a very unforgiving combo deck or whatnot. But people were not just like, oh yeah, we're gonna shark you out of your bones to do so. Like they were quite nice. They like in less competitive settings, they were just like, okay, like just we can backtrack a little bit, or I'm gonna let you have that trigger for now. Don't forget it again, because then I won't give it
Yeah,
to you. Like stuff like that. They're, like being reasonably lenient, and I understand that sometimes you're not gonna give a trigger to someone when there are stakes. That when you're playing for a set championship promo, when you're playing for day two of a DLC or whatnot, and I'm not gonna commend you for it. Like
I mean,
you
you're
do
playing to
you.
win to a degree. Like,
Yeah, you do you. Just like do it clean. Like don't do it just to get people and just to like shank people. I'm sorry using that term, but like really like win in a clean fashion. It's not that hard.
I mean, I like for my wins personally to be deserved, like to feel like I worked for them and I deserved them and I won them fair and square. I don't know how I would feel knowing that, like, oh, I won because I skirted around.
That's the
But
thing.
anyways,
Yeah, like it's not good memories. Like I have like fun memories of like like today I got this playmat. Like I don't know if I'm gonna keep it, but like it's a great memory. We had fun with friends. The team from Sherbrooke
yep.
was there. I see them quite infrequently, so it was just fun chilling around all day, having fun, and like playing some fun games. Like I played against teammates. I played against people I don't play. I don't usually play against. Like it was just all kinds of fun.
Yeah, same. And like yesterday, I finished fourth in mine, losing to a really good player I know from a few hours away. He drove with one of his friends down, and it was a really good match. And like, I lost fair and square. He played it well. His cards drew better than mine. Like, I know it wasn't the deck per se because he played against my teammate who was playing the exact same list and lost 0-2 in finals. So clearly I could have won it, but I was super happy for the player. He's a great player that whenever he comes down, we're happy to see each other. We're happy to compete against each other.
See,
And like
when you're a
that's
good
the good
person,
kind of competing. Like,
like when you're a good person, people are happy to see you. They're happy to play against you. It's fun. Like you get something fun out of those games. It's not just like, oh, like the end goal is the prize. No, it's like also just like the experience.
and
Like
real like big shout out to the like I know you really like your Sherbrooke crew and they're great people. I haven't played that as much with them. But whenever we play Lorcana with the Saguenay people, which is about
mhm,
2.5 hour from Quebec,
love them, love those guys
like
too.
we go there, we always get the best welcome. They come to our tournaments. They're always like we're always happy to host them. They're all really fantastic people to play with and against. So, and this creates a kind of kindship in the card game where those people drive 2 hours or we drive 2 hours to go there and it's almost a celebration to see each other. It's like, oh my god, you did the trip. How was it? How are you doing? And I was super stoked for Nick to get his mat yesterday, and I was super stoked to like for my teammate to win against him and win the champion play mat. Because
Same for
like
me.
yeah, it's a good tournament. Like
Yes,
it's a
same for
good
me
game.
today.
We're having fun.
Like same for me today. People were just like we wrote to each other like a few nights before the tournament, but they were just like when I arrived, and I arrived like super last minute. I arrived at like 3 minutes from the tournament's beginning. They were just like, "Oh, you made it!" Like they actually were texting me while I was driving. Like, "Are you gonna make it? Do you want us to try and just like slow things down?"
Delay
And
the
oh,
start.
yeah, just slow down the start. And I was like, no, I'm gonna get there. Just gonna be like super last minute. And everybody was like, literally, I arrived and it was like hugs all around and like just good vibes. Like be a positive part of your community. Like I'm feeling so cheesy saying that, but like
But that's all it boils down to. Like be
like
the guy people want to play with and want to play against, not the guy that people dread, not because you're too strong, but because they know it's going to be a bad 50 minutes sitting in front of you.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like I've had people saying like, oh, I'm scared sitting across from you. I'm like, okay, we're gonna make sure that you're gonna have a great time playing. Maybe I'm gonna win. Maybe it's not gonna be even close, but we're gonna have fun. We're gonna joke around. Like you're gonna see like
And the best
no.
thing is when you end up winning those matchups that you dread because the player's too strong. Like I'm gonna circle back to the last round my girlfriend played yesterday. She was playing against, well, you know him, Nick Shampoo. Like
Mhm,
he's a good player. He's not an all-star player, but he's a good local player who
mhm.
has like he knows his deck. He masters them. And she sees the pairing. She looks at me and she's gonna be like, "Well, I'm gonna lose, but I'm gonna have a blast because I'm playing against Nick." And she sat down in front of him and 2-0'd him. And she was like, "This is the best day of my life.
You
I
see,
just I just beat a great player. I 2-0'd him." And she didn't care that she didn't top eight. She accomplished something in that event by
yeah,
beating a great player that she enjoys playing against.
yeah. Like today, I was told like after a semifinals, I beat my opponent, and he says, like, "Thank you very much. You beat me last time in the last tournament we played here, and it motivated me in playing at least an hour of online Lorcana every day to get better." And I'm like, this is so great to hear, so amazing. I literally just like said, well, like shook his hand and like really happy to hear that. Really stoked to play one another tournaments. Come by Quebec whenever you want. You're gonna be welcome. You're gonna have a great like welcome. So yeah, we're just gonna like wrap
Really,
this up.
really sad about the drama, but like it's really about keeping the game clean and speaking up for yourself if you ever feel like someone's taking advantage. Like, don't hesitate. You're you're not going to be a burden to the judge. It's their job. They're literally prepared to be there, and they're going to give you time. They're going to make sure everything's fine, and you're not going to be stumped over. And if your opponent is mad that you're calling a judge, it's probably because they were doing something that
You
they
might,
don't want the judge to know about.
yeah, it might be a sign of something not going right.
Yeah. So keep playing, keep doing your set gems, keep being clean, and of course, keep questing.